community and our participation in it with our wealth.
And communicating things that you care about in general.
Yes.
So,
right.
you know, we have issues with each of us individually. Well, for example, you know, one of my family members has ulcerative colitis. So one of the things that we've done is, since we've learned this, we're interested in supporting research, of course. Mm-hmm. Just like, you know, people who have a family member that's had cancer or whatever, you know, that mm-hmm. you contribute to these organizations because you don't want to see people have this type of suffering in the long term. I mean, well, the good news is that a lot of research has been done so that it's not as serious of an illness as it once was. Mm-hmm. And anyway, they're trying to, of course, even improve the situation even more. But I think part of what you're talking about in a more informal level is something that you've talked about on a more formal level before as like a family council. So the idea of sitting down as a family and talking about your values related to money and charities that you're interested in and what you would like to do as a family. Mm-hmm. So I think that sounds like a great idea. And the idea maybe of like even getting grandchildren involved, especially like you've got adult children. You know, when we're talking about somebody that's 60 years old, that means their kids like mine now, mm-hmm. Getting into their 30s, and they may have children that are starting to be aware of some things that mm-hmm. are around them. And so to sort of encourage them as a project, if you will, to identify something that's of interest to them that they would like to see the family support, maybe do a little research about it. And
well, there are a million things you can do once you start thinking about it and have the motivation to do it. Mm-hmm. I try not to set the bar too high at the beginning, just to get the conversation going. It's not easy, and the younger the grandchildren are, the more complicated it might become. But just get them thinking that we give money to help other people.
Okay. So related to this a little bit, you and I were talking, of course, in preparation for getting together today, and you talked a little about an old-time philosophy related to when people gave allowance to their kids many years ago, and so I was wondering if you could share a little bit about that.
Well, the formula for allowances that was handed down, people have talked about this, where you told your children, we give you this allowance, and here's what we want you to do with it. We want you to spend 1/3 of it in whatever you want, and 1/3 of it we want you to put into savings. And the other third, we want you to find some place in the community where you could donate this money to help other people. Mm-hmm. So 1/3 for you, 1/3 for the savings for the future, and 1/3 for the community. Mm-hmm. It's a great formula I don't know how many people have been able to discipline their children in the face of the consumerism and all the toys that cost a lot of money that are there. But it does at least separate that there are things, some money you need to set aside to give away. Mm-hmm. And you'd say, well, why would you want to do that? It's hard enough to get it. Well, surprisingly enough, the more people are willing to give, the less afraid they are that they don't have enough.
Yeah. You've heard of that guy Tony Robbins, you know, sort of a motivational speaker. Mm-hmm. And he talks about this in some of his material that I remember. And just the idea about giving and so forth, and that people are concerned about. He says there's a subconscious message that you're giving to yourself when you give, and that is that you can have enough. Mm-hmm. I think that's kind of an interesting thought.
That's the same message that Lynn Twist gives in her book, mm-hmm. that there is always enough. Mm-hmm. In fact, if you don't have that attitude, there will never be enough. You can't, and one philosopher said you can't get enough of what you don't really need.
Oh my gosh, okay. Well, what are some other approaches about promoting family giving?
First of all, I find that when I ask clients about, is there any causes you believe in and want to leave money to them, surprised, not totally shocked, that they haven't really thought about it. And then I try to ask them, well, how about your university, and if they've had some critical illness, hospitals, those are, clearly institutions where people have felt they've received something, same with their church or synagogue or whatever. Those are kind of the easy ones, but still, there just isn't. It takes some time to develop this concept, but I just hate to see people not pay any attention to it, because it's not that it's not good. What will hurt their children per se, but it's not good for the owner to feel like they haven't really lived up to the responsibility of making decisions about their wealth and where it should go, and what they want to be remembered for.
I think another thing that we talked about, and maybe it's sort of fits in with some of the things we talked about before, but it's to encourage family members themselves to develop an interest and appreciation for what organizations provide in our community.
Yes, it's another thing that I find in myself. I've given to organizations, and usually because somebody asked me. I mean, there's a story,
an element of that.
There's a common statement that's made in all fundraising, that people don't give to causes, they give to people who have causes. I think that's probably true at the beginning, but once you get identified with a cause, then I think that sort of takes over. But you don't get identified with the cause until you go down to wherever if it's a soup kitchen, or if it's things helping children or education, or if there's any place you can go to see where the money is going that they're receiving from gifts. There's nothing that gets to the heart faster than that. I mean, there's all the verbiage and pictures don't do it. It's just to see the flesh and blood, to see the children or whomever it is that you're benefiting. Then that gets people motivated. So I would encourage taking children, whatever cause you're doing, to take the children there and let them see for themselves.
Yeah. I had an experience myself. I was involved in the San Jose JCs personally for a number of years. And so that particular organization, we had community service projects. So I think one way then, really, in a sense, is to be a volunteer is a great way. In other words, even if you don't have money, you can give time, and if you give some time, you're going to be more inclined to give some money. But one of the things that we were involved in at the time was that they were restoring some of the trolley cars that were going to be put into San Jose that had run many years ago. Some of them they'd even taken from other places, but they were basically getting bits and pieces and restoring these cars. Yes. And some of the work that had to be done was fairly mundane. It was just even sanding the wood to get the old finish off so that it could be refinished and so forth. So on a couple of occasions, I took my kids down and I said, you help out, you can do this, you can sand this, and maybe someday you'll see this trolley car running in San Jose and you'll remember that you worked on this stuff. So anyway, and there are so many things. I mean, we talk about the immediate community, but there are a lot of organizations that encourage people to volunteer, and so then again build their interest. And so, for example, they look for volunteers to even work on archaeological digs and things like that. Kind of fascinating to get involved with, sometimes very tedious. Yeah. But nonetheless, they need the help, and then you may be inclined to support that. So. Anyway, and
there's always a threshold